There used to be a different Las Vegas. A Vegas that wanted you there even if you weren't rich. A Vegas that rolled out the red carpet for the middle class. A Vegas that understood something the current strip has completely forgotten. $49 rooms, not off-strip motels with questionable stains and broken ice machines. Real casino hotels, famous names. Properties on the boulevard, begging you to come with prices anyone could afford. $15 buffets piled high with crab legs and prime rib, mountains of shrimp cocktail, carving stations with actual chefs, all you can eat until you couldn't move. The abundance that made you feel like a winner before you'd placed a single bet. Free drinks appearing like magic, cocktail waitresses circling every 10 minutes with a smile. What can I get you, honey? The generosity that made losing money feel like a party instead of a mugging. That Vegas is dead, and they didn't just let it die. They killed it. Deliberately, strategically, on purpose. The end of Budget Vegas was a disaster. Not a minor setback, not growing pains from an industry evolving, a catastrophe, a self-inflicted wound that's still bleeding years later. The executives who made the decision thought they were being smart, thought they were finally running Vegas like a real business, thought the cheap rooms and free drinks were leaving money on the table. They looked at spreadsheets and saw costs to cut. They looked at budget customers and saw low-value transactions. They looked at generosity and saw waste. So they raised the prices, gutted the buffets, thinned the cocktail service, slashed the comps, extracted more from every customer who walked through the door. And now years later, they're discovering it was the worst decision in the history of the Strip. The consequences are still unfolding, the damage is still spreading, and nobody knows how to fix what they broke. Today, I'm showing you what Budget Vegas actually was, not the sanitized memory, the real thing. Why they decided to kill it, the logic that seemed so compelling in conference rooms, the spreadsheet thinking that missed everything important, and why that decision is destroying the Strip from the inside out. The ecosystem they didn't understand until they'd already dismantled it. The customers they drove away who aren't coming back. The math that seemed smart in a boardroom and turned out to be catastrophic on a balance sheet. Budget Vegas wasn't charity, wasn't inefficiency, wasn't the Strip being bad at business. It was the engine, the foundation, the thing that made everything else work. And they ripped it out. If you're new here, I expose the decisions that broke Las Vegas. Not bad luck, not unforeseeable circumstances, deliberate choices, strategic mistakes dressed up as innovation, the executive thinking that gutted an industry while patting itself on the back. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because understanding why they killed Budget Vegas explains everything wrong with the Strip right now. The empty midweek rooms, the service collapse, the resentment you feel when you visit, the sense that Vegas used to be something special and now it's just expensive. It all traces back to this decision, the death of Budget Vegas. Let me show you what Budget Vegas actually looked like, what tourists used to get for their money, what the Strip used to offer before the extraction economy took over. Because unless you experienced it, unless you were there in the 90s or the early 2000s, walking into a casino that actually wanted your business, you won't believe what they threw away. The generosity that defined Las Vegas for decades, the accessibility that made it America's playground, the deal that brought millions through the door and kept them coming back for life. They threw all of it away. Let me show you what they killed. Start with the rooms. The $49 room, a real room in a real casino, on the Strip, connected to a casino floor that wanted your action and was willing to pay for the privilege of having you there. Not luxury. Nobody pretended it was luxury, but clean, functional, a comfortable bed, a working bathroom, air conditioning that kept the desert out, everything you needed and nothing you didn't. Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, the slow nights, the soft nights, the nights when premium customers are home living their lives. Those rooms filled with people who couldn't afford weekends but could afford midweek. The teacher from Bakersfield who drove in after school let out. The retiree from Phoenix who came every month like clockwork. The young couple who couldn't afford a real vacation but could afford $49 and a dream. They filled the building. They played the slots, they ate at the restaurants, they tipped the dealers, they fell in love with Vegas and came back again and again and again. $49 got them through the door. What they spent after that paid for everything. The buffets. God, the buffets. $15, sometimes $12, sometimes $9.99 with a player's card and a coupon from the tourist magazine. Walk in and the abundance hits you. The visual overwhelm of more food than any human could eat. The steam rising from chafing dishes. The smell of prime rib and garlic and butter and possibility. Crab legs piled in mountains. Not a few sad legs on a tray mountains. All you can eat. Go back 4 times. Nobody judging, nobody counting. Prime rib carved to order by a guy in a chef's hat who asked how you liked it. Medium rare, pink and perfect, juice pooling on the plate, unlimited. Shrimp cocktail, oysters, sushi that was actually decent, dessert stations that went on forever, soft serve machines and cake slices and cookies still warm from the oven. $15. The buffet wasn't profitable by itself. That was never the point. The buffet was a loss leader. Get them in the door, get them full and happy. Get them feeling like winners, like Vegas was giving them something, like generosity was the whole point. Then they'd walk past the slots on the way out, feeling lucky, feeling abundant, feeling like this was a place that wanted them to win. They'd sit down, they'd play. The $15 buffet would generate $50 of slot revenue, 100. 200. The math worked beautifully. The drinks, free drinks. Not technically free, you were supposed to be gambling, but the enforcement was a smile and a wink. Sit at a machine, put in a 20. A cocktail waitress appears within 10 minutes. What can I get you, honey? Vodka tonic, Jack and Coke, whatever you wanted, appearing like magic, brought by someone who remembered your face if you came often enough. Who knew your drink if you were a regular? Who made you feel like a valued guest instead of a revenue unit? Every 10 minutes, 15 at most, the drinks kept coming, the generosity kept flowing, the feeling that Vegas was throwing a party and you were invited, that feeling was worth more than the vodka cost. And the comps. The relationship that rewarded loyalty. Play for a few hours and the pit boss notices. The host appears. We'd love to have you back. Here's your next room on us. Dinner comped, show tickets materialize. The sense that your business mattered, that you weren't just a transaction. Regular visitors became VIPs, not whales, regular middle-class people who came often enough and played enough to earn recognition. The comp system that created loyalty you couldn't buy with advertising. That was Budget Vegas. Accessible, generous, designed to make middle-class tourists feel like high rollers. Built on a philosophy that said, give them value, make them feel special, and the money will follow. The $49 room that got them through the door, the $15 buffet that made them feel abundant, the free drinks that kept the party going, the comps that built loyalty across decades, a machine, an ecosystem, a carefully calibrated system that turned modest customers into lifetime revenue streams. Not charity, business, incredibly effective business. Vegas understood something profound. Generosity creates spending. Make people feel like they're winning and they'll let loose. Make them feel extracted and they'll hold tight. Budget Vegas made people feel like winners, and they spent like winners. And they killed all of it. Deliberately, strategically, because some executive looked at a spreadsheet and decided the $49 room wasn't profitable enough. The $15 buffet was a waste. The free drinks were costing too much. The comps were too generous. So they raised the room rates. 49 became 149, then 249, then 349, now 400 or more. They gutted the buffets, raised prices to $65, closed others entirely, the abundance replaced with calculation. They thinned the cocktail service, laid off the waitresses, replaced human hospitality with an app. Wait times went from 10 minutes to 45. They slashed the comps. Algorithm-driven stinginess instead of relationship-based generosity. The hosts who knew your name laid off. The personal connections severed. They extracted more from every customer who walked through the door. Squeezed harder, charged for everything. Resort fees, parking fees, fees on fees. It seemed smart. It seemed like optimization. It seemed like finally running Vegas like a real business instead of a charity. It was the worst mistake they ever made. And they're only now, years later, with empty rooms and collapsing revenue and customers who fled to alternatives starting to understand why. The executives who killed Budget Vegas didn't understand what they were destroying. They saw line items, costs to cut, margins to improve, inefficiencies to eliminate. They didn't see the ecosystem, the machine that cheap rooms and free drinks and generous comps had built over 50 years. The interconnected system where every piece supported every other piece. They thought they were trimming fat. They were cutting arteries. Let me show you what Budget Vegas actually did and why killing it broke everything. Budget Vegas was the entry point, the front door, the welcome mat that let new customers discover the city. Think about how people used to find Vegas. The young couple in their 20s can't afford a real vacation, see an ad for $49 rooms, take a chance on a weekend getaway they can barely afford. They arrive. The room is modest but fine. They walk the strip with wonder in their eyes. They eat at the buffet and can't believe the abundance. They play the slots and win $60 and feel like kings. They fall in love, not with gambling with Vegas, with the feeling, with the energy, with the sense that this place wants them to have a good time. They come back the next year and the year after. They bring friends, they celebrate anniversaries, they throw bachelor parties, they become regulars. 20 years later, they're bringing their kids. They're the reliable midweek guests. They're the foundation of repeat business. That couple, they were created by a $49 room, a $15 buffet, a cocktail waitress who made them feel special. Budget Vegas was customer acquisition, the loss leader that created lifelong customers. The cheap room wasn't the product, the cheap room was the hook. Get them through the door, let them fall in love, convert them into decades of revenue. The first timer who came for a deal became a regular. The regular became loyal. The loyal customer eventually became a whale, or at least a consistent, reliable, profitable guest who filled rooms and played tables and brought others. The pipeline, the funnel, the system that turned curious newcomers into lifetime value. Kill the entry point, you kill the pipeline. No $49 rooms means no young couples taking a chance. No first-timers discovering the magic. No new customers becoming regulars. No regulars becoming whales. The funnel that fed the entire ecosystem gone, choked off at the source. The pipeline of future customers eliminated by executives who only saw the cost of the cheap room, not the lifetime value it created. But the entry point was just the beginning. Budget Vegas did something else. Something the executives never understood because it didn't show up on a quarterly report. It filled the building, not with whales, not with high rollers, with bodies. Regular people, middle-class tourists, the unsexy customers that spreadsheets undervalued, and bodies the simple presence of humans in a building matter more than the spreadsheets ever showed? Budget customers filled midweek. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the dead zone, the wasteland, the nights when premium customers are home with their families, living their regular lives, not thinking about Vegas. No whale flies in on a Tuesday. No high roller books the penthouse for a random Wednesday. The premium customers that executives love, they come on weekends. They come for events. They come when it's convenient for them. The midweek? That's when the building sits empty. That's when the fixed costs pile up against nothing. That's when $1 million a day flows out and nothing flows in, unless you have budget customers. The retiree from Phoenix driving in for a Tuesday overnight. The couple from Bakersfield taking a midweek getaway. The regulars who came precisely because the rooms were cheap and the casino was quieter. They filled those rooms. $49 is infinitely more than $0. A body in a bed gambling something, eating something, drinking something is infinitely better than an empty room and silence. The economics were simple, brutal, obvious. The room sits empty, you get nothing. Zero revenue against fixed costs, pure loss. The room fills at $49, you get $49, plus whatever they spend at the casino, plus the restaurant, plus the bar, plus the show. The budget guest who paid $49 for the room might generate $200 of total spending on property. Not whale money, but real money. Money that covered costs. Money that turned dead nights into profitable nights. Kill budget and you kill midweek. The rooms sit empty. The casino floor echoes. The restaurant serves skeleton crews to skeleton crowds. The fixed costs, the $1 million a day, piles up against revenue that doesn't exist. That's exactly what happened. Midweek occupancy collapsed. 50%, sometimes 40%. The rooms that used to fill with budget travelers now sitting dark while the rent comes due anyway. The entry point, the midweek filler. Two critical functions that Budget Vegas performed without anyone in a boardroom understanding their value. But there's a third function, the most important one, the one that explains why budget customers actually generated more revenue than the spreadsheets showed. The psychology, the feeling, the mental state that cheap rooms and free drinks created. A state that made wallets open, that made spending feel natural, that made losing money feel like winning. The executives killed that too, and they have no idea how to get it back. Budget Vegas created a psychology, a feeling in the customer that unlocked spending. When the room is cheap and the drinks are free and the buffet is abundant, something happens in your brain. You relax, you let go, you stop counting every dollar. You feel like you're already winning. The room was a steal. The drinks are flowing. The food was incredible. Vegas is giving you something, being generous, treating you like a guest, not a mark. In that mental state, you gamble differently. You don't white knuckle every bet. You don't agonize over every loss. You're playing with house money, or at least it feels that way. The generosity created permission to spend. The guy who got the $49 room and the free drinks and the cheap buffet, he doesn't think twice about putting $100 in the slot machine. He's already ahead. He's on a heater. Vegas is being good to him. He loses the 100, puts in another 100, loses that too. Doesn't matter, he's still having a great time. The room was so cheap, the drinks were free. He's winning even when he's losing. That psychology generated more revenue than extraction ever could. When the room costs $400 and drinks require an app and the buffet is $65, if it exists at all, the psychology inverts. You count every dollar, you feel every loss, you resent every charge. The parking fee? Outrageous. The resort fee? Insulting. The drink that took 45 minutes? You're timing it now, tallying grievances. You feel extracted, not welcomed, processed, not a guest, a revenue unit. In that mental state, you hold tight. You gamble less. You spend less. You leave earlier. You come back never. The $400 room guest who feels nickeled and dimed might generate less total revenue than the $49 guest who felt like a king. The expensive room created resentment. The cheap room created joy. Joy spends money. Resentment leaves. Budget Vegas wasn't leaving money on the table. It was unlocking money that premium extraction can never access. Kill the generosity, you kill the psychology, and the spending follows it out the door. The executives thought budget customers were low value. The cheap room guests, the buffet crowds, the people who came for deals and clipped coupons and tracked promotions. They looked at per customer revenue and saw small numbers. They compared the $49 room guest to the whale in the penthouse and saw obvious waste. What they didn't see was the ecosystem. The entry point creating lifelong customers. The $49 couple who returned for 30 years. The midweek volume making fixed costs bearable. The Tuesday rooms that would otherwise sit empty. The generosity psychology unlocking spending that extraction kills. The mental state that made losing feel like winning. They saw budget as a cost. It was actually the foundation. And they demolished it. Raised prices, gutted buffets, thinned service, slashed comps, extracted more from every transaction while destroying the system that made transactions happen. Now the midweek rooms sit empty, 50% occupancy on Tuesdays. The pipeline of new regulars is dry. No young couples falling in love with Vegas because they can't afford to discover it. The psychology of generosity has been replaced by the psychology of resentment. And they can't figure out why the numbers keep getting worse. The spreadsheets said kill budget. The spreadsheets were catastrophically wrong. Budget Vegas is dead. The $49 rooms are $400. The $15 buffets are $65 if they exist at all. The free drinks take 45 minutes and require an app. The comps have been gutted to the point of insult. The budget customers were driven away, priced out, made to feel unwelcome. So what filled the void? What replaced the middle-class tourists who used to pack the buildings and fill the midweek and keep the machine running? The answer is devastating, because what replaced them can't sustain the Strip, and the executives are finally starting to realize it. The Instagram tourists showed up, the bucket list crowd, the content creators, and the once-in-a-lifetime visitors. They come for the photo, the story, the content. They want to stand in front of the Bellagio fountains and post it, walk through the Venetian and film it, get the shot at the Welcome to Las Vegas sign. They come once, they see the Strip, they document everything. They post and they leave and they never come back. Why would they? They got what they came for. The content is captured, the box is checked. Vegas wasn't a destination, it was a backdrop, a setting for their social media, a prop. Instagram tourists don't fill midweek. They come on weekends when the lighting is good. They don't become regulars. There's no relationship to build. They got their content. They're done. They don't generate decades of revenue. They generate one visit, one transaction, one and done. You can't build a business on customers who never return. And that's exactly what the Strip is trying to do. But at least Instagram tourists choose to be there. They want Vegas, or at least they want the photo of Vegas. There's another group that replaced budget customers, and they're not choosing anything. They're captive, forced, required to be there by circumstances beyond their control. And captive customers are a terrible foundation for an industry that's supposed to be about joy. Convention guests filled part of the void. Business travelers on expense accounts. Trade show attendees who have to be there because the conference is there. The CES crowds in January. The medical conferences, the industry gatherings that book 10,000 rooms at once. They don't choose Vegas, they're assigned Vegas. Their company sent them, their industry holds the conference here. They show up because their job requires it. They don't comparison shop because their company is paying. They don't fall in love with the city because they're stuck in conference rooms from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. They don't explore the Strip because they're exhausted from networking and just want to sleep. Convention business is volatile, dependent on the economy, one recession, and corporate travel budgets evaporate, dependent on trends. Remember when everyone discovered Zoom? Virtual conferences almost killed the industry. Dependent on competition. Orlando is building convention space. Nashville is building convention space. One better offer, one newer facility, and the conference books elsewhere. Convention guests don't build loyalty, don't bring families next summer, don't become regulars who return quarter after quarter. They attend, they leave, they forget. Building your model on captive customers who don't want to be there is building on sand. Instagram tourists who come once. Convention captives who don't choose to be there. That's what replaced the budget customers. The middle-class regulars. The repeat visitors who filled midweek and generated decades of loyalty. But here's what really replaced budget customers much of the time. What actually fills the void on a random Tuesday in March? Nothing, nobody, empty rooms and silence. The budget travelers who used to fill midweek don't come anymore. Priced out, driven away, told through price signals and gutted comps and vanished generosity that they weren't welcome anymore. So where did they go? The tribal casinos, 45 minutes from home, lower table minimums, real comps, staff who remember their names, the old Vegas hospitality that the new Vegas threw away. The locals casinos, Red Rock and Green Valley ranch and station properties that actually want their business, that treat them like valued guests instead of revenue units. The Airbnbs, entire houses for the price of one strip room, kitchens and pools and space, the value that Vegas stopped offering. Or they stayed home, stopped traveling for gambling entirely, found other ways to spend their entertainment dollars. Let Vegas become a memory instead of a habit. Nothing replaced them on the Strip. The rooms just sit empty. The towers go dark. The silence where the budget crowds used to be. 50% occupancy on a Tuesday, 40% on a soft week. The fixed costs piling up against revenue that doesn't exist because the customers who used to generate it were driven away. That's the disaster. Budget Vegas wasn't replaced by something better, it was replaced by vacancy. Now they're trapped, caught in a doom loop they created and can't escape. They killed budget to increase per customer revenue, charge more per room, extract more per guest. The math seemed simple. Revenue declined because customers left. The higher prices drove away more people than they retained. The extraction psychology killed the spending that generosity unlocked. So they raised prices more to compensate. Fewer customers, charged them more. Resort fees went up, parking fees appeared. Every extraction point squeezed harder. More customers left. The family that could afford $350 couldn't afford $450. The regular who tolerated the parking fee couldn't tolerate the resort fee on top of it. So they cut costs to close the gap, laid off the cocktail waitresses, gutted housekeeping, thinned the service to bone. Experience declined. The service that used to justify premium prices disappeared while the premium prices remained. Reviews got worse. Not what it used to be. Overpriced for what you get. Won't return. Fewer customers came, the doom loop accelerated, the spiral tightened. And here's the devastating part, the part that keeps executives up at night even if they won't admit it. They can't bring budget back, even if they wanted to, even if they realize their mistake, even if some new CEO walked in tomorrow and said, "We're rebuilding budget, Vegas." They can't. The infrastructure is gone, the knowledge is gone, the people are gone. They burned the bridge while standing on it, and now they're drowning. The buffets are closed, the kitchen's repurposed. The staff laid off. You can't reopen a $15 buffet next quarter. There's no kitchen, no cooks, no infrastructure. The cheap rooms don't exist in the systems anymore. Revenue management algorithms won't allow $49 rates. The pricing infrastructure assumes premium extraction. Rebuilding budget would require rewriting years of software and strategy. The cocktail waitresses were laid off. The institutional knowledge of how to deliver generous service, the rhythm, the timing, the hospitality that made it feel natural walked out the door with the workers. The comp system was dismantled. The hosts who built relationships are gone. The culture that made generosity feel like policy instead of exception evaporated. Even if they wanted to rebuild Budget Vegas, it would take years, billions of dollars, and it would require admitting they were catastrophically wrong, something no executive ever wants to do. So they don't. They keep extracting, keep raising prices, keep cutting costs, keep hoping the doom loop somehow reverses on its own. It won't. It can't. They built a trap and walked into it. The end of Budget Vegas was a disaster. Not because budget customers were the most valuable per person. They weren't. The whale in the penthouse spends more in a weekend than the budget guest spends in a year. But budget customers were the foundation, the entry point that created new customers, the midweek filler that covered fixed costs, the generosity psychology that unlocked spending extraction can't access. They saw a cost to cut. They cut the thing that made everything else work. The pipeline that created whales? It started with $49 rooms. The midweek revenue that covered fixed costs? It came from budget travelers. The psychology that made people spend freely? It was generated by generosity. Kill budget and you kill the system. You're left with Instagram tourists who come once, convention captives who don't want to be there, and empty rooms where the regulars used to be. That's the Strip now, a city that killed its foundation and wonders why the building is crumbling. Hit subscribe to watch what happens next. I'm tracking the desperate attempts to recapture what was lost, the promotions that aren't working, the discounts that come too late, the slow realization that Budget Vegas wasn't a cost, it was the whole point. Drop a comment, do you remember Budget Vegas? The cheap rooms and free drinks and buffets that felt like abundance? Do you miss it? Would you come back if it returned? Because the executives killed budget thinking something better would replace it. Nothing did, nothing could. The entry point is gone, the midweek filler is gone, the generosity psychology is gone. What's left is extraction and resentment and empty rooms and a city that forgot why people used to love it. The end of Budget Vegas was a disaster, and the disaster is still unfolding. I'll see you in the next one.